Hello one and all, my name is John Clare, this is Graphic Content, and you, yes you, are very welcome. So the piece I want to talk about today is a little piece I like to call The Companion and Me. The reason why I call it that is because it kind of reflects the two subjects I want to talk about with you today, which is two things. Symbolism, which I use in a lot of my work. It's usually about how we use like different animals as visual signifiers for different emotional themes or different concepts, And in this particular one, I used the black dog. And the reason why I use the black dog, because it leads into the next part, is because it's about depression. And depression is, without kind of going into too much detail or turn this into a bit of a pity party, what I wanted to do is I wanted to talk a little bit about how, for me personally, I've had to deal with depression quite a lot in the past. And I haven't always, in fact, nearly always. I've never dealt with it in the most productive of ways. It's kind of led into like issues I've had with anger and everything else. And when you're dealing with depression, or when depression is dealing with you more accurately, that it leads you to doing some really foolish things, very self-destructive behaviors. It affects the relationship it affects your relationship with friends and family. It is a very destructive thing if you don't deal with it properly. Whether that's talking to someone, or whether that's kind of going through something like CBT, or trying to express your feelings in productive ways. And I like to think over the last couple of years especially that I've tried to deal with it with my artwork and using symbolism and using other things to kind of help me communicate what I'm feeling. Now, I do appreciate when an artist creates an artwork, whatever you may mean to communicate isn't always transmitted. At some stage, the art becomes more about how the viewer perceives the artwork rather than what the artist is trying to communicate. But that's what I was trying to communicate with this. It was basically how depression can lead to kind of destructive behaviors. The black dog is kind of a useful visual descriptor because dogs are faithful companions. They follow you to the ends of the earth. They're always there, and depression's a bit like that, but in all the worst possible ways. And to a degree, I suppose with symbolism, and especially when you're using animals and stuff like that, you're anthropomorphizing those feelings. You're giving them character. Although it is you yourself, or in my case, me, myself, that's enduring those feelings of self-hate and self-doubt, and how that impacts how you deal with the rest of the world. And yeah, it's a tough subject to talk about, and it's a tough subject to deal with. Even now, where I feel like I've got a pretty good handle on it, it's like when you're talking about it, even in this context, I find myself kind of reminiscing a little bit, and it's tough. But by the same token, my art's kind of helped me move on and deal with it. It's one way that I've dealt with it. So yeah, I wanted to deal with depression, and I wanted to deal with symbolism. Those are the things that I really wanted to talk about with this piece. So anyway, look, what we're gonna do, we're gonna go up to the office now. So yeah, I'll just do this. Welcome up to the office. Glad you could join me. On my desktop, you can see the piece, The Companion and Me. And if you can't quite make up, I'll put it up on screen for you now. Okay, got that? Excellent. So, that piece was done using my trusty iPad Pro here, using the wonder that is Procreate. I'm going to use one of my favourite features now, Procreate Time-Lapse, which records the entirety of the drawing process and enables me to kind of walk you through some of the choices I made, how I did what I did, and maybe a few other things besides that to try and make it as interesting as possible, okay? So I'm just going to hold this up to the camera here now, and I'm going to transition in, okay? And here we are. This is the time lapse, and this is me drawing the dog with its open maw and rather sharp, nasty looking teeth, at least to start with. So yeah, here we are. I'm just getting the baselines done, resizing to make sure everything's in proportion, and yeah, colours. All the line work seems to be popping in out of nowhere. You'd think I just done this in 2 seconds. I didn't. It took me bloody ages to do that. Problem was Procreating their time-lapse feature. Everything just kind of, every now and again, things just pop in and out. out of nowhere, which is kind of annoying. Because the thing is, like, sometimes, if I'm being honest, this isn't necessarily a time lapse of me doing the entirety of drawing. Sometimes, like, I do tend to kind of collage my drawings. So, like, I'll draw something and I think, okay, that's not necessarily appropriate for this piece, but I'll kind of separate it off, do something else, and then come back to it and utilize it for something else, which is what I actually did with this black dog, because it was a theme. As I said before in the intro, like, it is depression and symbolism are two things that with this drawing. Well, I use symbolism quite a lot in general, but with this particular piece, I just wanted to do something that was more, you know, something a bit more personal, and maybe a little bit. If I'm being honest, it's probably a bit too personal, but. It's just a subject I really wanted to kind of tackle, because, like, it's been kind of, I still do it every now and again, but it's just, for this piece in particular, I mean, I think I've done like one other piece quite similar to this, with like the two characters, both of myself and of the companion, are snarling at each other rather than. But I think this is more about projection. It's more about me projecting, like, again. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think. Maybe I'm talking a bit too much about depression. Part of it's like anger, and like they say depression is anger turned inwards, and like that's been my expression. Because when I was a kid, I was quite an angry kid. You know, I was always getting involved in scraps and fights and stuff. But only as I got older, then, you know, I don't know, coping mechanisms and whatnot. Anyway, I'm not really talking about the drawing here, am I? So okay, this is me drawing me drawing my eyes and my glasses. And I don't know if you've ever noticed, but you know when you look at someone with glasses, their eyes either look too small or too big. That's from the lens refracting the light. And it's quite a tough thing to draw as well, because, like, you know that it's wrong, but that's what's there. So your brain kind of wants to compensate for it. So you got to kind of resist that urge. So I think I've done a reasonably good job with this. The mouth looks a bit weird at this stage, which thankfully I kind of copped onto and shrunk. Another good thing about working digitally is you can actually, if you're happy with like how something looks, but it's too big or too small, you can like expand it or contract it. Okay, that does kind of mess with the pixelation a little bit, because it does kind of affect the resolution, but you can kind of work over the top of it and compensate for that. So it's not really that big a deal, in my opinion, at least anyway. And there's me kind of filling out details around the teeth and mouth and beard. And yeah, it's kind of. It's coming along quite well. I mean, I've got a big lustrous beard. I don't have that beard anymore. I kind of cut it off because it was just too much of a pain in the ass to keep, you know, in any kind of shape. You know, it was a bit wild, a bit Appalachian. So I thought, you know what, rather than looking like a mountain man, I thought I'd, you know, just stick with the 1 week old stubble and that'll do me. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty happy with this. Kind of. Yeah, there's me drawing the hand. I mean, hands. I mean, you'll hear like I say, like the least favourite thing to draw for a lot of artists is hands. I find them quite interesting. They are difficult to draw. Don't get me wrong; they are very, very difficult to draw. But you know, they are interesting to draw. Also, you just kind of get on with it, really, like a lot of things. And there's me kind of starting to this shape. One thing I was actually asked about by a friend of mine, because he was saying to me, like, what's cross-hatching? Because he saw one of the previous videos. He was saying, what do you mean by cross-hatching? What does that actually mean? Well, I shade via cross-hatching. Something I've done even when I was working in pencil and pen. I preferred cross-hatching because it's something I took from comic books. So like I'd be reading a lot of comic books when I was a kid, and I'd want to shade like they shade. So, but I kind of moved it on and kind of did my own thing with it. But what cross-hatching essentially is you're taking marks and you'll draw out kind of like rows of marks, and then you kind of alternate and do another row on top. And what that does basically is it kind of restricts the amount of the surface of the media. So whether it's paper, canvas, or the screen of your iPad, doesn't matter. But that restricts the amount of white coming through. So you can create tone by just using line work. And it's the way I prefer to shade. I mean, as I said before, I'm not really one for smudging or like doing dodge and burn or anything like that. I like there to be, I like to show the drawing. You know, I'm not trying to hide the drawing like some people might prefer to do. And that's up to them. That's purely a stylistic preference. It's just I like to show the drawing behind it. So I like showing all the cross-hatching. So I'm not necessarily, as long as the tone's right, I'm not, if you like zoom in, you see a few imperfect marks, I'm not really that bothered. You know, as long as it, you know, when you're looking at it and you know, as long as there's a degree of accuracy in what I'm doing. But I'm not trying to make it look like a photograph. I don't care to. If I wanted to, I could. It's just not something I want to do, so I don't. Because if I want to take a photograph, I've got a bloody good camera for that. I'll just take a photograph. What do I need a drawing of a photograph for, you know? And that's the thing that I mean, although I use photographs as references, you know, I don't want them to look like the photograph. So I will adjust and change if I see fit. I think that's kind of important, kind of to maintain a degree of artistic integrity, especially for me anyway. I can't really speak for anyone else. Anyway, look, we're coming to the end of the drawing now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer you back over to me and we'll wrap this up and we'll send you home. Okay. Okay guys, that was a time lapse. I hope you found that interesting and hopefully the rest of the video also. I do believe there's a comment section down below, so if you have anything you want to say regarding any of the subjects that have been touched upon in the video, please do so. Also, there's a like button and dislike button. Hit either of those as you see fit. And obviously the subscribe and notifications button. So if you choose to subscribe, please do so. It'd be very useful for this channel, obviously. And yeah, hit the notifications if you feel that you want to get regular updates about when I upload videos. And on that note, I think we'll sign off. So, my name's been John Clare, this has been Graphic Content, and you have been very welcome.